You're listening to the Breakaway Wealth Podcast, the show that helps you build wealth faster, think outside the box, and break out of the herd. Here's your host, Jim Oliver.
Welcome back, Breakaway Wealth. I'm your host, Jim Oliver, and with me today, Brian Will. Welcome, Brian.
Jim, thanks for having me today. We're going to have some fun.
We are going to have some fun. I love what you're going to talk about. And, it's funny because when I got the booking, it shows this really attractive woman that must be your booker for podcast appearances. And I was like, dang, okay, I got to read down here what Brian's all about.
So you booked it for her, not me. I see how this goes.
It was distracting. Brian, I'm a single guy. It was distracting just for a second. And then I was like, I'm talking to Brian. But then now that we kind of got to know each other a little bit before the show, I'm excited that we're talking because we got lots to talk about. So Brian, I always hate when somebody reads my bio. So just tell us a little bit in your own words, a little bit about you, what you do, and what you're all about.
Jim, I call myself the most unconventionally educated entrepreneur. And the story starts from a child who lived in an abusive home, who failed out of high school at 16, got kicked out of the house at 18, joined the military because I had no place else to go, got off active duty, couldn't hold a job. So I started my first business. That was in landscaping. Having no idea what I was doing. I call it No Clue. It's one of the subtitles in one of my books. But did really well until it didn't. When I was 30, I lost everything. My daughter had to have open heart surgery. She was going blind in one eye, and I had to start my life all over again. Switched industries to insurance. This was the dawn of the internet. I built the first virtual call center. We called it a virtual sales center. Today, they call it direct to consumer. In the health insurance space, sold it to a venture capital firm. That company went public. Did it again. That company is called getinsured.com today. They power like 9 states for the state-based ACAs. Started an internet marketing company that we sold to a private equity firm doing pay-per-performance lead generation. Got into consulting, started doing building high-performance sales teams for Fortune 500 companies. Wrote 4 books. 2 became Wall Street Journal bestsellers. Got into politics. I sat on city council. Started a consulting company. I own a real estate company. I own a restaurant chain. It's been a long story. So that's the 2-minute version.
I love it. You know what I you and I have a lot to talk about because I always tell people, I went to a really bad public school in California. We were 11% proficient for the California standards. I'm not saying I was part of that 11%. I'm just saying as a group, we were 11% proficient. I was a solid 1.2, 1.3 student.
1.2.
And so when you have books, audience, like a couple of Brian's books are, I give dumb kids hope, which I love that. 57 lessons to take from a life of despair to multimillionaire, and then the dropout multimillionaire. So the thing that I love about this, and Robert Kiyosaki talks a little bit about it, is he has a book called like Why A Students Work for C Students or something like that, right? And when you're an A student, you do everything that somebody else wants you to do to make a grade. When you're a C student, you're like, yeah, I don't really want to do that, right? And you start and you fail. You're okay with failure. You're okay with setbacks. You're okay with obstacles because you're used to it. A students, they get hit in the face and they're in the fetal position on the couch for 3 days, right?
I like to say, Jim, it's not that we're okay with failure. We don't have any other choice.
That's right. That's right.
You can either curl up in the ball or you can keep moving forward, which is what I had to do.
Yeah. And we're coming off of the Mike Tyson fight with Jake Paul. And Tyson always says everybody's got a plan until they get hit in the face.
Yep.
But Mike forgot one thing in that fight is you got to hit the guy in the face. You actually got to hit him to win, Mike. All right. And, I'm 1 year older than Mike. And after watching that fight, I'm thinking, I'm ready. 20 million. I'll fight him tomorrow. 8 rounds, 2 minutes each. I get to drink and rest in between. That's better than my workout in the morning.
He had a good half of the first round.
He did.
He clocked him once and scared him, and then he fell apart after that.
I think it was all rigged because I think he decided that, hey, you know what? If this guy hits me, he might damage me. And I make so much money online that I don't want to be damaged.
Yeah.
Right? I don't want to have a concussion from Mike Tyson. I don't want to be foggy. How about this? I'm going to get you tired. We're going to dance around a little bit. You're going to get 20 million. I'm going to get 40 million. Call it a day. I mean, it's what it looked like to me. But, all right. So why do kids is it, because, I know, Brian, people ask me this all the time. Well, where are the kids you grew up with? I have no idea. I don't talk to any of those people. And, like they're still there.
Still in a small town.
So what separates, like when you're having failure, whether it's in school or whatever it is, how does one person process failure and become successful? Another person processes failure and just wallows in it.
Part of it I call nature versus nurture, right? What's inside of you. The other part of it is something I actually was going to do a video on today, and it's about the why, right?
Yeah.
And I like to say when people go into business, and I have this thing called the 5 keys to success, which are the same 5 keys to failure. And the number 1 is, why are you doing this?
Yeah.
And we know when you go into business, you and I have been in business a long time, shit's going to hit the fan. Things are going to go wrong. People are going to come after you. Your employees are going to hate you. The government's going to do some stupid shit. Shit's going to go wrong.
Yeah.
And if your why isn't strong enough, you will fail and you will quit and you'll go back and get a job.
Yeah.
And when you look at people that succeed or fail, and I did this in one of my TED Talks, people that particularly like me, I came from a bad background. They tend to go in one of 3 directions. I call it the abused becomes the abuser, or the abused gives up on life and never does anything. And this third set of people take failure and use it as fuel. And they use that fuel to make them do things that most people won't do.
Mm-hmm.
So they can have things most people won't have. And that fuel is the why. The reason I never quit? Because I had something to prove to everybody in my life who failed me and repossessed my cars and my houses, and the kids that beat me up, and my parents who, all the shit that happened created this unbelievably powerful why that made me just keep going. And some people don't have a strong enough why, and that's why they quit. And so that's a longer discussion, but the quick answer is their why isn't strong enough.
I love that, because when Nick Costco, who's worked with me for 10 years in showing people infinite banking, and he was a pilot and everything, he said, Jim, you're like a barge. You're just going down the river. Nothing's going to stop you. You're not going as fast as some people are going down the river, but you're not turning around. The barge is going down the river. And I agree with you. It's like, oh, there's an obstacle. Yeah, we'll get through that. There's an obstacle. We'll get through that. Because, I was in an abuse. I was raised in an abusive house. I was adopted. And I have 5 siblings. I'm the only one that was put up for adoption. And so I had this chip on my shoulder, right? I had this thing to prove.
Yeah.
And I don't know how to quit. Like, I don't know how to quit. I'm divorced. I still didn't even know how to quit that. She had this, it was her that didn't want to repair it, right? I would have repaired, but like, I can overcome this. But my point is that you're right. You get this, like you said, there's 3 different choices. I really hate when people say abuse people, or hurt people. It doesn't have to be that way, because people will say to me, well, why are you so charitable? And why are you so, why are you always trying to help other people and help other people succeed? And it's because nobody helped me. And so I want to help other people do that. I want to give them the confidence in that drive, that why. Like, I want to help them find that why. It's really hard to help people find their why, though. Tell me how you do that.
You don't help them find the why. You try to guide them in the right direction, but at some point they have to make the decision.
Yeah.
I was talking to somebody. I went to an event this weekend, and I was watching the room, and 90% of the room was there to get motivated. And I thought to myself, if you need external motivation to go do what you want to do with your life, then you are probably going to fail, because your why isn't strong enough. Your why needs to be your motivation. Your F you, I'm going to do this and I don't give a shit. Our why, that's your motivation. I don't need motivated. My motivation is I'm going to succeed. If you need motivation, you have a problem.
I don't believe in motivation. I believe all you can do is create an atmosphere where people want to motivate themselves. And I've seen this for years and years and years. And I remember back in the 80s when I was, because I was a financial babysitter, financial planner, and I was building my practice. And I was like, people would say, hey, we're going to go see Tom Hopkins. We're going to go see Tony Robbins. We're going to go see, and I was like, to do what? Like, oh, to get motivated. Like, we're going to get all pumped up and motivated. And I went to one and I was like, I don't need this shit. Like, I'm motivated because I was homeless once. I don't want to be homeless.
Yeah.
I'm motivated by pain.
Yes.
Like, I don't want to live in where I grew up.
Or anger. My motivation, I've always said, was anger. I was so angry at my past that I had to prove that I wasn't. This is the funny part about this, Jim.
Yeah.
For 25 years, I was trying to prove to the world I wasn't this loser that they thought I was.
Yeah.
And then at one point, I went through counseling after my divorce. You come to realize that it's not the world you're trying to prove something to.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's yourself that you're trying to prove something to. I had to prove to me that I wasn't that person. And that was my motivation.
No, and you know what? That's deep, man. You know what I love to say about my past, because I spent, yes, we have some similarities in our path, man. But like, I spent a lot of time in, I can tell you all the right things to say in cognitive behavior therapy. I can tell you all this stuff that doesn't work. And forgive me, all the people out there that are like in talk therapy, but talk therapy doesn't work because you dwell in the past. And I've given up all hope of a better past. Is like, I've given up all hope of a better yesterday. Yesterday didn't matter, right? What's happening today? What's happening tomorrow? What's happening today? What's happening tomorrow? And when you focus on that, you have to have a vision on where you're going, or you're not going to go anywhere, right? So that's that why. But when people say, "Well, Jim, how do you create a vision?" Well, like, what do you mean? How do you create a vision? What do you want?
Yeah,
what do you value? What do you care about? Like, what gets you up in the morning? Like, you get up because you got to go to work. I hope that's not the case. I get up and go play golf because I want to hit a golf ball at 80 years old, 300 yards. Like, because I think I can do that. Like I play golf with guys that are in their 20s that are plus handicaps and get my butt kicked because I want to get better.
It's about the why. Why are you doing this? Why do you want to do this? Why? Because if that why isn't like 110%, you will quit. You will quit.
That's right. So talk about that. What is it? Because it's kind of like self-sabotage. Like, I talk to so many people, and I was just talking to a woman that is building a business right now. She's never been in business. Her background is totally away from that. And she's like, and I'm like, hey, are you struggling with this? And she was like, did you just look into my soul? And I was like, and I said, listen, only because I've been there, right? I've done all the self-sabotage, fear of failure, fear of success. I've done it all.
Yep.
Okay. But I stopped doing it to myself, and I can help you stop doing it too. But talk about that self-sabotage. Again, that's the nature versus nurture to some degree, but like, talk about that.
It's imposter syndrome.
Yes.
That is self-sabotage.
I don't deserve this.
I don't deserve it. I don't believe I can do it. I don't believe it's owed to me. I don't, it's self-sabotage. It's imposter syndrome. And the funny thing about imposter syndrome is everybody has it.
Yeah.
I have it today. I promise you, everybody that's super successful has some level inside them of that imposter syndrome. They've just been able to compartmentalize it, box it up, put it away, and move forward anyway. It's like you just go forward anyway. I don't care what is going on. I don't care how bad it is. I don't care what obstacles in front of you. You just take another step. I don't think I deserve this. I don't care. Take another step. I don't think I can do it. I don't care. Take another step. If you'll just allow yourself to take another step forward and forget all the bullshit that's going on in the backside of your head and just keep moving forward, eventually you'll go, well, son of a bitch, I can do that. Right?
What's funny is it's like somebody like says, well, I feel like, and the guy says, F your feelings, just do it.
You ever seen a running back in the NFL? And I love this. What do they teach running backs when you are getting tackled? Keep moving your feet.
Move your feet.
You see them, they're just like,
drive your legs. Yeah.
You never stop moving your feet. I don't care if 200-300-pound guys are crushing you. You don't stop moving your feet. And every now and then they break through. And that's how you approach life and business and whatever it is you're trying to accomplish. Just keep moving.
I love that, man, because, the thing is that I always say that to somebody in a fight, right? And where I grew up, I was in a lot of street fights, and I'm not the guy that says I won all these. No, like I lost as many as I won, and that's being kind to me. Okay, so but what you do in a fight, if you're really in a fight, when you get knocked down, the first thing you got to do is find your feet.
Yeah,
because you got to be able to stand up, right? And it's just like what you're saying with the running back. Is if you can move your legs, if you can pump your legs, well, then your feet are still on the ground somewhere, right? There might be 20 guys or 10, two guys, 300 pounds on you, but your feet are on the ground. And so I love that. I love that. And so, okay, so let's shift gears a little bit and talk about, one of the things that we do at Create Tailwind, and not that this show is about Create Tailwind, but we show people how to use this thing called infinite banking concept to go out and buy businesses and assets and things. And it's like, okay, everybody thinks they want to be in business, but then that fear, this is part of self-sabotage, right? Mm-hmm. That fear of imposter syndrome. I don't know how to run a business. I mean, nobody's going to come and work with me. Nobody's going to want to buy that. It's all that negative self-talk, right? But let's talk about being in business, and what do you think gave you that fearlessness? I know it wasn't fearlessness because you had fear too, but it's just doing it anyway, like you just said, to go out and build these businesses and then be able to sell them. I mean, like, that's what people want to do. Whether I'm a dentist, I want to build up my clientele and then sell my business. If I'm in property and casualty insurance, I want to build up my book of business and then I want to sell it to private equity, whatever it is. One of my biggest clients I asked him one question: what's your exit strategy? He was like, nobody's ever asked me that. Right. So talk about how people overcome, not how they overcome that, but getting into business and how you help people that think that they want to be in business or have a business now and they want to grow it.
This is a complicated answer, but I think one of the biggest things you're talking about is fear of loss, right? If I'm 45 years old and I've got a job and I've got a little bit of savings and I'm making good money and I'm thinking about starting a business, my biggest concern is fear of loss. I'm going to lose my income. I may lose my investment. That's going to cause a problem for my family, and I'm not willing to take that risk. That's tough. That's called golden handcuffs. You've got yourself strapped into something. I got a buddy right now who makes $500,000 a year in his job, who wants to be in business, but he's deathly afraid of losing his income, plus his investment. So he's never going to do it. In my case, I was 21 years old. I didn't have any other choice. I didn't have anything to lose. So, I almost feel like it's better if you have nothing to lose because there's no risk involved. I used to say that all the time. People are saying, you take a lot of risk. I'm like, what do I have to lose? Like, I have nothing. And then as I started building a business and creating success, I started using calculated risks in what I would invest, right? Today, my mantra today is I will invest all of my income, but none of my assets. Right. So if I make $1 million a year, I'll invest $1 million a year into new businesses over and over and over and over, knowing that a few will hit and a few won't. I'm just not going to start burning off the assets that create the income that allow me to do the investing. So there are different stages in the investment and business starting game. And depending on where the person's at, what they've got, too many people start a business without the proper assets, without the proper backing, without the proper security. They don't have enough money to get through a year. And that's why they fail. They start making bad decisions based on the fact that they can't pay their mortgage and they don't invest properly in their business. So there's so many mistakes people make because they're undercapitalized in that venture when they start. So if somebody comes to me, I have a whole host of questions about why you're doing this, how long you've got to make a profit, what happens if you don't, is your wife on board? Is your family on board? Like, because if your wife's not on board, that's a problem.
That's a problem.
So you got to be careful when you do these things. So I don't know that there's a pat answer to that. It really depends on the individual. That's not a very good answer. Sorry.
No. It's fine. It's good. It's, I think that if somebody wants to be a business owner, like they need to read about business owners. You talked about imposter syndrome. the book that's full of imposter syndrome, people that overcame that, is the Bible, right? Is there's all these people that, I mean, there's two sides, right? There's like, there are people that, hey, I'm the king. I'm great. I'm great at everything. Everybody should worship me. And those people normally get humbled. And then the person that's humbled, like me, no, I'm not the messenger. I'm not that person. I'm not going to slay that giant. You know, like, that's not me, right? But those people are built up, right? Because again, it goes back to, hey, when I was a teenager and I was in a fight and we were somewhere in a nicer neighborhood, I was like, dude, you got way more to lose than me. I got nothing. I don't even want to go home. You know, like, I want to die right here. And you know what? People sense that. When you don't have anything to lose, people sense it and they respond to it. And if you're fearful because you have so much to lose, you're never going to accomplish anything. But I love what you said about being smart and investing, not your assets. I remember this guy retired when he was like 35. He ran a utility company for Warren Buffett. I don't know how he got the CEO job in his late 20s, but anyway, he said we were looking at this company to buy, and I was like, okay, like, how much am I going to, like, I'm thinking in my head, how much do I have to come up with? You know, what part am I going to own? Is that how we're going to figure out ownership? And he said, well, Jim, we're not going to use our money to buy this company. We never use our money.
Right.
And so it was like one of the smartest things anybody ever taught me.
You know, it's funny. Back, my first business was landscaping, and I was young, and I ended up working for a guy. His name was Terry Pendleton. He was a third baseman for the Braves. He had just come into Atlanta. I learned a lot of business lessons from Terry. Bought this big house, and I was doing the landscaping on his house. And I remember him telling me once, he said, you know, my house is paid for. My cars are paid for. I don't have any debt. All my money is invested in T-bills and bonds. I take zero risks because my ability to earn income is in baseball, not in investing in the stock market. And if I ever lose my ability to play baseball, I know where my money's at. I don't make stupid decisions. And he called it the McDonald's lifestyle. I know that if I lose my income in baseball, I make enough money in my investments, I could work at McDonald's for the rest of my life and still live in a mansion and have 15 cars.
Yeah.
I've always remembered that lesson about investing. And it's funny, when we sold my second company, now the first company I actually sold, I got $1 million, right? Which you think is a lot. This was 1996.
Yeah.
And I go down to the bank, and I told the banker, I said, I want to pay off my house and my car. This, by the way, was in January of 2000. And the guy's like, no, you need to invest in the stock market. These internet stocks are going crazy. And I'm like, no, Terry told me literally to pay off my house, pay off my car. And that way I can't be hurt. I can't lose my car, can't lose my house, won't lose my lifestyle. We argued for 20 minutes. I finally paid my house off. And you know what happened in March of 2000? The bubble burst. And if I had listened to that banker, I'd have lost everything.
Yeah.
But instead, I'm sitting in a paid off house, paid off cars, and life is good. So that's a lesson I've carried with me my whole life.
So it's funny because I've got a couple of business partners that are billionaires. And believe it or not, my neighborhood in South Dakota, there were like 3 billionaires in this neighborhood. And I remember one guy saying, I retired. I was this person, I won't say their name, his money guy. Like, I invested his money for him. I said, what do you invest in? Cash. I said, so let me get this right. He's paying you, you know, a assets under management fee, and you're going out and putting money in cash equivalents, right? Yeah. You know what, dude, you're pretty brilliant. You have no risk. He's not going to fire you because he knows what he's getting, right? All he's trying to do is, he's a billionaire. Just getting a few percent of this money is more than he's spending every year. And, you know, it goes up like that. I have another friend who's a billionaire, and as of 2 weeks ago, it was like 7 billion, but it's all in Bitcoin. So what's it worth now? 12?
He's had a big run.
He's had a big run. Where the guy's made $5 billion, $4 billion, $3 billion in the last 2 weeks. Yeah. Right? You think that guy's like, hey, what's my rate of return on? It's just like, all he does is write books and talk to people and tell them how to do it. You know, like, so it's interesting because one of the things that we talked about was the things that we learn when we're younger, and then we don't put them into practice until we're older. But then we look back and we think, oh crap, I learned that when I was 15 years old. You know, so give me an example of that, Brian.
Gosh, I'll give you we talked about this briefly, but my first aha moment, I call it, right? So I'd gotten off active duty. I start this, I get a job mowing grass because I didn't have anything else to do, right? I just got married. I was living with my grandmother with my new wife. Didn't have a job, didn't have a car. I was not the picture of success. Nobody was looking at me going, this guy's going to be huge living with his grandma. But I get a job mowing grass, and we're out there literally for 2 weeks. And I'm going out every day. We pick up the equipment. We go out, we mow 25 lawns. We get checks for $25, $35 each. At the end of the day, we drive back to Todd's house. Todd owned the business. He had like 5 crews. We give Todd all the money. We go put the equipment away. The next day I get up, go get the equipment back out, go mow lawns all day, get all the checks, go back to Todd's house, walk up, knock on the door, hand Todd the checks. And after about 2 weeks of this, I thought, one of us is stupid.
Yeah.
I'm out here killing myself, making $4 an hour. And Todd's sitting at the house waiting for me to deliver money.
Yeah.
Right. One of us is stupid, and I know which one it is, and it's me.
Yeah.
And I've had multiple moments like that in my life where I thought, what am I doing? There's a better way to do this. And so I literally quit, started my own lawn mowing business, having been in the lawn industry for 2 weeks.
Yeah.
And
but you were an expert by then.
I built it into 7 franchises before the entire thing collapsed, which it did. And in that collapse, I learned that the biggest 2 lessons in business I ever learned was from my first collapse, right? Number one, 80% of my revenue was coming from one client. It was a large multifamily developer. And when they fired me because the new VP of construction's son was in landscaping and he wanted to hire his son, when they fired me, they withheld all my funds because they wanted me to wait 6 months for my warranty work to get done. And because they were 80% of my revenue and I had no cash assets in the bank, I had no money to back myself up with, my business collapsed. I lost everything, lost my house, my cars, literally lost everything, and hit rock bottom. Daughter needed open heart surgery. I mean, just a crazy time in my life. And those are the lessons that drive, that stick in your brain for the rest of your life. I will never be without assets to protect myself. I'll never be too indebted to one client who controls basically my income stream. And I'm always going to protect myself because I never want to be poor and broke again. It sucks.
It's there was a guy, and I can't think of one of those motivational guys from the 80s. He said, I've been poor and I've been rich. Rich is better.
Yeah. That's a line from Wolf of Wall Street too, Matt Damon. I've been poor and I've been rich and I'll take rich every time.
That's right. That's right. I think he took it from this book. You know, there's a pamphlet that was going around in the 80s and it's still awesome today. And in fact, I ordered some, but it's called The Common Denominator of Success. And it's by Albert Gray. Have you ever seen that? But it comes down to this. Successful people do things that unsuccessful people either can't or won't do. Right? That's it. And I like to make a decision to do things that either people can't or won't do. I used to say habit, and I don't believe in habits anymore. If I want to get in shape, I make a decision to get in shape. I don't build a habit over 21 days. I don't believe that. I believe that you make a decision. I'm going to get healthy. That means now, right? That's the first step. If I say I'm going to have abs by the time I'm 60, well, then I make that decision. If I make that decision, I'm not going to go to McDonald's and get 2 cheeseburgers, right? But excuse me, I think there's so many people out there that are working 9 to 5s and they want to be, whether they're making $500,000 a year like your buddy, or they're making minimum wage, doesn't matter, right? It's how to change your mindset, eliminate the fear, or at least manage it, and take action. So talk about some of the things that you offer at Brian Well Media. Like you have a master class. What would I learn in the master class?
You know, I spent about 25 years doing training after I sold my companies in corporate America, working for public and private companies. We do sales and sales management training. Many times that sales and sales management training turns into a much broader advisory service because people don't understand that sales is not just sales. Sales starts with budgets. Budgets get allocated. Allocations go into marketing. Marketing has to allocate across marketing channels. Marketing channels will have to produce. They're dependent on sales. Sales is dependent on marketing, and then it goes into production. There's a whole supply chain of what happens from top to bottom. And so, after doing this for so many years and traveling all over the place, I'd made this decision to try to take everything that I do and turn it into video training series, and then tack on the back of that either one-on-one or group advisory work. And so we've launched under Brian Will Media. We do high performance sales team building. We do sales management, operational building. We do P&L analysis work. I'm going to get technical here.
Yeah.
It's called historical P analysis. Use identifying core metrics, applying pattern recognition to predict the future, and then reverse engineering where your company is to where it wants to go. That's a very technical way of saying I can help you time travel in your business. And if you don't like what it's going to look like, I can show you how to fix it.
I love it.
So that's kind of what I do in my advisory work. And I focus on companies from 2 to 30 million in revenue for a specific reason, because I've built companies from 0 to 30 million in revenue. And I've trained sales organizations that are doing $1 billion in revenue. So if you have a $50 million revenue company, I'm probably not your guy. I believe what I do is specific to this subset of companies. But if you're trying to scale a business in that 0 to 30 million revenue range, I can absolutely show you how to do that. So that's kind of what I'm doing.
And I love the psychology part of what you talk about with sales, because, you know, I remember when I started in Wall Street, when I started financial planner. So I'm telling people to invest in Wall Street. It wasn't on Wall Street, but I was going out and I was talking to the doctors, the attorneys, the accountants, and the people, the executives. This was in Denver, so it was like kind of high tech, and you know, these executives. You know, I had to have the right. There's a reason why I wear a T-shirt every day. Is I had to have the right suit, had the right tie, I do still love watches. Had to have the right shoes, everything else, right? And I thought, man, I'm struggling. None of these people want to work with me. And then I was driving down Santa Fe Boulevard one day and I saw this industrial place. Well, I worked at a casket factory when I was a kid. My adopted father drove a trash truck. My adopted mom worked in a casket factory. Those were my people. What I realized is the guy with the welding shop, and he's got the scruffy beard and the holes in his T-shirt, he's making more than the doctor. Right? And the guy doing the plastics formation, what do you build? We build cones. Like, what do you mean, like cones? Like out in the street? Yeah, we do that. Yeah. And that guy's making 5 times what the doctor's making. Yeah. Right? And I thought, all of a sudden, I had all this money flowing in and all these new customers and all the guys with the right, and I would take the tie off and I would take the suit coat off and throw on some jeans and a dress shirt. And people are like, what are you doing? And I'm like, I'm just talking to my people. My people
being authentic. That's what you're doing.
I'm being authentic, right?
Yeah.
And so, you know, I love that. I love that you have that background of when you accept yourself is really when you can find your why. Trying to find somebody else's why is a disaster waiting to happen. Talk a little bit about like just acceptance and being authentic.
You know, when we talk about the psychology of sales, which is one of my books, one of the things that I try to tell salespeople in particular is think about how you would react if somebody was saying to you what you're saying to this other person. And if your reaction would be negative, then their reaction is negative, right? Think about how you're presenting yourself to that person and how would you react if they were presenting that to you? And this gets down to the way you talk, the things you say, or the things you oversay. So the psychology behind sales talks a lot about authenticity. I say we use specific and general scripting, but you have to insert your personality into it because people know if you're being disingenuous. And the most successful salespeople are people who can make a connection with the other person, not people who are just reading something, or they're being disingenuous, or they're just trying to get money or extract something out of you. So being authentic is how you make connections with people, and those connections are how you move forward, whether it's sales or business or whatever. Uh, that's it. The most successful people are make genuine connections with the people that they're talking to.
So you make me think of one of my favorite books, and it kind of leads me up to my final two questions. Is one of my favorite books is The Go-Giver, and there's 5 laws that he has of stratospheric success, and one of them is the law of authenticity, and it's a law. If you're trying to be somebody else, you're not going to be successful. Mm-hmm. I mean, if you're trying to, I remember driving around Denver when I was trying to build my practice, and I was listening to Tom Hopkins, How to Master the Art of Selling Anything. Mm-hmm. And he would talk about selling a JLG lift, right? And I would think, man, I am never going to be as smooth as this dude. This guy, just his vocabulary, his grammar is perfect. Like, it's just like, that's not me. Mm-hmm. And I realized it doesn't have to be me. Now, you needed to be like that to go sell the doctor and the tech executive and all those people. And by the way, if I would have done that, I would have never gotten 700 million under management. Mm-hmm. Even those people in Denver, the real estate bust, the tech bubble, all those blow ups, all of those guys would have taken their money away. And those mm-hmm. people really don't have as much money as they say. Mm-hmm. There was 2 textbooks that I think it was Charles Stanley is the guy's name, or Tom Stanley. I can't remember. Stanley was his last name. He was a professor, and he talked about how to work with affluent people. And then he wrote The Millionaire Next Door. That was like taking these 2 textbooks and dumbing it down to one simple mm-hmm. book. But in the textbooks, he goes into great detail. And he would talk about the guy that has the metal scrap business mm-hmm. that's making $3 million a year, that's driving a 20-year-old truck, that you would never, ever know that he's making that much money, mm-hmm. right?
Yep.
And I love those people. I love their stories. I love their lifestyle. I love their authenticity. I love, love, love people that are just them, Mm-hmm. And so, all right, Brian, last 2 questions. I think I could talk to you forever, man, because we're passionate about the same things, and we have, like I said, there's a lot of similarities in our background. But what's the best advice on your path that anybody's ever given you?
This is a great question, and this gets right down to part of what I do, and probably part of what you do in your business. And it's either coaching, mentoring, advisory, or consulting services, right? Too many people in business fail because their ego will not allow them to accept advice from somebody else who has potentially been there and done what they're trying to do. And that ego will keep them from succeeding at a high level. And there's a whole story with me and how I came about this, but some of the best advice I've had is quit taking your own damn advice.
Love it.
If you don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah, love it.
And too many people won't do that, and that's why they fail.
It prompts me to think about golf. Okay. So I'm in Florida, play golf year round, 3 days a week at least, right? And if you go play golf with a lot of guys, they tell you what they're doing with their swing. I've never had a lesson. By the way, I've been working on the same thing for a year, and I want to be able to turn and not use my hands, use my hips. Your hips are way more powerful than your hands, mm-hmm. and make impact consistently the way that a pro does. I can't turn my hips like a pro. Yeah. So what? I can, I will. Okay. And because I'm getting coached by somebody who is really, really good and has a really sound foundation. And I always think about coaching and mentoring, and that's what you're saying is if you're so arrogant that you think that you don't need a coach, you haven't found the right coach. right? Or you haven't found the right person, or you don't have the confidence to go to the right person. But and I use this analogy all the time. Brian, if you and I were going to go climb Mount Everest tomorrow, I mean, we're going to make sure we got the best equipment, man, right? We're going to have the best boots, the best goggles, the best jackets, everything. But the one thing that I'm going to find as the best Sherpa on the planet.
Yes.
Right? I mean, oh, you can't go next week? All right, we'll go the following week. You know, like, you're coming with us because you've been up and down that mountain a million times.
Yep.
Because success leaves clues, right? Like, we know what not to do. We know what to do. So, yeah, I think that's great advice. Get the hell out of every time that you have ego. Again, I talked earlier about the Bible, and people that have egos get knocked down. People that have humility, they learn from somebody, they learn from, whether it's God or mentor or whatever, they learn from somebody bigger, smarter, more experienced than them. And, you know, the one thing I do like what not the one thing, but a few things that I like that Tony Robbins says is he says, if you want something, go find somebody that has it or has done it and do what they did.
You know, I love this story. We all know Apple, right? Makes our phones. And we know Tim Cook, who runs Apple, one of the biggest companies on the planet, got to be one of the smartest guys out there, right? Running a $3 trillion company. And much like every other major company in the world, he has a 12-man board of directors. And their job is to come in quarterly and give him advice,
right,
on how to run Apple. Yeah. And then he also has a personal coach for his, just personally for his life and his family and what he does, his mindset. So if one of the smartest guys in the world running the biggest company on the planet needs 12 people to come in quarterly and give him advice and then a personal coach, what in the hell makes you think that you're going to do everything all by yourself and that every decision you make is right?
Absolutely. You know, it's funny that you bring up the coach too, because I have a trainer, then I have a nutrition person, I've got a hormone person, and my nutrition and supplements guy, he's my age and he has 9% body fat. Right? That's a perfect example. Yeah. I want to have 9% body fat, or maybe I don't want, 12. But that's my guy. I don't want to go to some guy that says, hey, I know how to do this. Yeah, I'm really overweight right now, but man, do I know how to do this? Right? Like, I want the guy that lives it, breathes it, like can't live without it. That's the guy. I want the guy that's going to say, well, Jim, you only worked out 4 days last week. What the hell's wrong with you? Okay, well, I had this going on, that going on. That's the guy I want, right? The guy driving me, making me better. All right, last question. If God came down from heaven, Brian, and only allowed you to retain the knowledge that you've received from one book, what would that book be?
There are 3 books, but I'm going to I'll give you number 1.
Okay. I think it's the 3. Give us number 1, but then give us all 3, because I like that. I'm intrigued now.
Number 1 is a book by Malcolm Gladwell, and it's called Blink.
Love it. Yep.
And the concept behind Blink is that everybody has this subconscious filter in their brain that accepts and rejects information in real time as it's coming at you. You get 1 million bits of information coming at you a day. Your filter accepts or rejects that information. And whatever it accepts goes into your filter and becomes part of the new filter that you use to accept and reject information, right?
Yep.
Now, the problem is, and I usually ask people this question, Jim, do you know anybody that no matter what they do, they can't seem to win? They fail. They just can't seem to figure it out. The reason is because their filter is what we call a failure filter, and it doesn't know how to accept successful information, right? Yeah. Successful information's got to get in, and if your brain's rejecting it, then you're never going to succeed at what it is you're doing. They're the people that everything they touch turns to gold, and that's because their filter, their success filter, accepts the correct information and uses it to make decisions. All that stuff is done in a blink, which is the name of the book, and it's done without you even knowing it. And I tell people, when I say this, somebody in your podcast audience is right now sitting going, that guy's full of shit. Their brain isn't going to accept what I'm telling them. Yeah. Because their filter thinks something completely different. And some people will say that's exactly right. So if you understand how the brain works And then you understand that if you're not succeeding the way you want to succeed, it's because your personal filter isn't working correctly. All you have to do is find somebody with a success filter to come in and help you make the right decisions until you get the right information in your brain, and then you will succeed. So that's my number one book.
So I love that. I'm going to go back to golf for a second. So let's say you're getting ready to, you're on the tee box, and fairways, every hole has a fairway, right? But sometimes there's water, sometimes there's trees, sometimes there's a sand trap. If your brain focuses on one of those three things other than the middle of the fairway or wherever you're trying to hit it, you are screwed.
Yep.
Right? Because your brain, if you're focusing on the water, more likely than not, you're going to hit the ball in the water.
Yep.
And so, like, I hate playing golf with somebody who goes, oh, hey, there's a lot of wind up there. There's, the water's on the right. Shut up. I don't need that in my head.
Yes.
What I need in my head is, see that little patch of brown in the middle of the fairway? I'm going to hit the ball right over that.
Laser focus.
Laser focused. All right. What's the second book?
So the three books are Rich Dad, Poor Dad, The E-Myth Revisited, and Blank. And I say Rich Dad, Poor Dad takes somebody who's never considered business and gets them into the mindset of, I need to move out of the employee into the self-employed, maybe into the business, and eventually into the investor block, right?
Yeah.
So I think that's a great, very, very, very basic beginner book about business. Secondarily is the E-Myth, because the E-Myth teaches you what it takes to succeed in business, why some do and some don't. We call it the 4 personalities. And then Blank teaches you how your mindset is the most important thing you've got in the building of your business. And if your mindset's not right, you will fail. This is why we get into coaching and consulting. All 3 of those books I combined into my book, which is The Dropout Multimillionaire. But I think those are the biggest 3 business books for somebody who is really starting to get rolling from, we'll say, 0 to 10 to $15 million in revenue.
So I love all 3 of those books. And so I haven't read your book, The Dropout Millionaire, but I'm going to order it today because I love that. I love when you combine things. I'm writing a book right now with Nick Costco, who's a co-host on this show at times. And it's the 12 most important personal development lessons in all of the books out there. And then where the roots are to the Bible, because I think it's so interesting that you can find the roots of these 12 lessons in the Bible, right? And so, but I love when people take all of this stuff and combine it, right? And I'll leave us with this. And I don't know if you've ever read J.D. Rockefeller, but J.D. Rockefeller grew up poor. And normally, if you're an abusive family, then you probably grew up poor, right? But I don't know why I just said that, but maybe that's just maybe my experience. My filter says that. I'm sorry for you rich kids that were abused too, because I know that does happen. But I've always not liked rich kids. I'm just I didn't when I was a kid. And but J.D. Rockefeller, when he was super poor, he had a vision that he was going to be the richest man in the world. Like that was his goal. That was his vision. I'm going to be the richest man in the world. And he was. But then a great book, if you haven't read it, this is, in the turn of the century from 1800 to 1900s around, I think the last letter was like 1912. But he wrote these letters to his son trying to pass on this knowledge. And they made it a book. Now I can get in a little book, 28 letters that a father who was the richest man in the world telling his son the things he needed to know to be successful. Right? But you know what my favorite Robert Kiyosaki book is? And most people have not read it. And it's a horrible title. I love Robert Kiyosaki, but there's certain things he is not good at. And it's called Second Chance.
I have not read that.
And it is, in my opinion, it's as good or better than Rich Dad, Poor Dad. You're right on the basics. Just knowing that one lesson that you said, hey, I want to be a really successful 9-to-5 slave. No, I want to be the smart dude that's the guy that owns all this real estate that does whatever he wants to do when he wants to do it. But Second Chance, horrible title, because the young people go, I don't need a second chance. I just need my first chance. He goes through all of those same kinds of things, but he goes in a lot more detail. It's kind of like the cash flow quadrant and all that. But it almost like he combines, this is what made me think of it, Brian, back to your book, The Millionaire Dropout, is he combines all of those previous books into this second chance. Somebody gave him a really bad name, but if it was Rich Dad, Poor Dad 2.0, then everybody would have bought it. But anyway, all right, Brian, thank you so much. I think I would like to have you back on the show, or maybe do like a workshop and just talk to people about how to buy a business. And, what are I've got 3 techniques that I've used in the past, and people always go, oh, that, and I know you've got more, and we could just kind of feed off of each other on like a workshop or a class or something like that.
I love it. Let's do it.
Educating people and just getting them out there. And I know you are, I can tell, again, when you grow up in the inner city, you learn to read people very quickly. And I can tell you have a big heart, and that you care about people, and that you're really authentic when it comes to just wanting to help people succeed and find out what their why is and what their vision is, and help them get there. So thank you.
I love watching somebody have a mental breakthrough and go, oh my gosh. Or I love people going, wow, that really worked. We're making more money. Or, oh my gosh, you've helped. I love that. That's like that's the same dopamine high for me as it is when I sell a deal or close a deal or sell a company or buy one. It's that adrenaline rush is the same when you help somebody else do it as when you're doing it yourself. So yeah.
I agree. It's funny because I've helped people like 10x their income, right? Nick Costco was a pilot in Louisville, Kentucky for UPS. 99.9% of the people, or 99% of the people in Louisville, would trade jobs with him in a second. And he came to me and I was like, hey, I make good money. I've got this great pension, and Jim, my benefits are this. And I said, Nick, you got 4 kids, right? Yeah. How often do you have to be away from the kids? Oh, 3 or 4 nights a week. You like that? No, I hate it. Oh, what if we could just figure out, what if I could show you how to be a business owner, work with me, and you could be home every night? And that's exactly what happened, and make a lot more money where you don't really give a crap about that pension. And he's like, yeah, let's do it. So anyway, I love that. It's easy not easy, but I know how to do it for me. I can do it over and over and over again, but I always want to have partners, and I always want to collaborate, because I don't need to compete anymore. Like I'll collaborate with somebody. One of my goals is to take the Uber Eats delivery guy and make him a millionaire. I just haven't found the one that wants that.
Plus, well, there's a reason probably why they're Uber Eats drivers, but the side benefit to you, and I'll be surprised if this isn't something you recognize as well, is when you help those people, you get somebody else to hang out with and play with, traveling around the world and have fun.
Yeah. Now you're talking about Costco again. We were just in Majorca with him and his wife. We went to Scotland. Yes, exactly. Yeah. I want somebody.
It can be lonely at the top.
It's funny too, is not to get off track here, but like when you're meeting somebody, and again, being single, when somebody says to me, Jim, all I want is just to have my house, my bills paid for. And I go, oh, you're not the right girl for me.
No. Yeah.
I want the girl to go, hey, Jim, you know what I want? I want it all. When I travel, I want it to be the best. I want it. And then I'm like, okay, I don't care what you look like. I don't care what your background is. Now we're talking, right? Now we have an abundance mindset. We want the best. We want it all. Why would I ever limit my life? I only get to do this once.
Yeah, that's a fact.
So
mortality's facing us. You're the same age as me.
Well, are we? Oh, you're 59. So you know what I call 59, Brian, is halfway.
Yeah, I say I'm in the back 25, because by the time I'm 90 or 85 or whatever, I'm not sure I'm going to be running around the world like I am now.
Yeah, I always Dan Sullivan, when I was doing strategic coach, he had a thing called the life extender exercise, and it would be like, how old do you think you're going to be when you die? And then you write it down. Well, what if the last 5 years, what would be ideal? Like, what would your life look like? I'd play golf every day. I'd do this. I'd go fish, whatever people say, right? And okay, if you were having all of those things, how much longer would you want to live? And it's always like around 20 years, right?
Yeah.
So that's how I got to 120. So that's why I say halfway. So, I think I'll live to 120. I don't really care.
But you know, Ricky Bobby says, with advances of medication and my high income, there's no reason I can't live to 130, 140.
That's right.
If you know the movie.
Yeah, I absolutely know the movie. We'll end it on the Ricky Bobby. So thank you, Brian, for being here. Thank you, audience, for listening. And we're going to wrap this up like we do every episode with the incredible words of Earl Nightingale and The Strangest Secret. Take it away, Earl.
Here's the key to success and the key to failure. We become what we think about. Now let me say that again. We become what we think about.
Thanks for listening to the Breakaway Wealth Podcast. Be sure to subscribe to this show wherever you're listening so you never miss an episode. If you want to start increasing your wealth building ability right now, go to community.createtailwind.com to join our free online community and get access to free, in-depth training designed to help you build real, lasting wealth. See you next week.